This is Iowa Everywhere. And now, it's time for Two Guys Named Chris, powered by Fairway Meat and Grocery. This is Iowa Everywhere. For the fans.
It is, legit kind of cold out here in Iowa today. Hassel, what's the temp down there in Delray Beach? Is that where you live?
Yeah, same as it always is this time of year. You wake up, it's about 79, and it gets up to about 88. But I'm leaving for Michigan in just a few hours, and I think the high is only 65 the whole weekend up there. So I'm gonna pack my long sleeves and jackets. Yeah.
Who do you have this?
Eastern Michigan hosting Buffalo.
I bet on that game.
We discussed this on Monday. Were you drunk?
Did we discuss this game?
Yeah,
I thought you said you...
Because Eastern Michigan just beat Arizona State, got Herm Edwards fired.
You're right. I recently bet on this game.
Which side are you on?
I laid the 6 with Eastern Michigan, which is a dangerous spot. They're coming off of a high. But I told you, so I know a lot about Buffalo. And it all comes back to the Van Treese kid who you called his game last week. So he played for Buffalo for however many, and Buffalo's head coach, Maurice Lindquist, is a Paul Rhodes guy. Did you know that?
Yep.
Yeah, so I like Maurice a lot, and I watch a lot of Buffalo, and I don't think their defense is very good this year. I think that – is Chris Creighton still the head coach at Eastern Michigan?
Is.
Yeah, so he's an Iowa guy.
Iowa ties here. Yeah. When I was in Des Moines, Chris Creighton was the Drake head coach. So
yes. So this is an interesting game for Iowans. This is good.
It's funny. It's in Ypsilanti, which is just outside Ann Arbor. Okay.
So do you fly to Detroit?
Fly to Detroit, and then I'm actually staying in Ann Arbor. Brady Quinn, who's doing Big Noon Kickoff, they've got the Michigan-Maryland game in Ann Arbor, but he said that the hotels were all booked, and he's actually just staying at the airport. So I'm staying in Ann Arbor. He's not. I'm closer to the big house than he is.
Wild. Good stuff. Well, that'll be what time and how can we watch that?
It's at noon Eastern on CBS Sports Network. So
okay. So I'll have to pop that on the second screen while I'm at Jack Trice Stadium at the varsity game.
Yeah, right.
This week.
Speaking of that, I kept getting emails this week for Florida, Tennessee. I kept getting all the emails that the Florida Tennessee broadcasters were supposed to get.
Yeah.
And I talked to Brad Nessler yesterday on CBS Sports HQ, and he's like, "Oh, I keep getting all these Eastern Michigan Buffalo emails. I don't know what's going on." And I said, "What? I think I've got all your emails, and you've got all mine."
Oh, little mix up.
I said, "You want to switch games this week, Brad? I'll take the CBS game at 3:30, Florida, Tennessee, and you could take Buffalo, Eastern Michigan."
When you talk to Brad Nessler, do you just feel like you're playing NCAA football?
I asked him about that. I said because it's coming back, so I asked, "Are you going to be the voice again?" And he said, "No, that was a lot. I don't think I'm going to do it this time."
That does make sense though if you think of all the different things that he would have to say.
Oh yeah,
for the computer to
and it's even more now. I mean, now we're up to 131 teams.
Are they going to have actual players though? I think they are, right? So it would be like Brock Purdy or Hunter Deckers. Yeah. So you'd have to voice all that.
Right. That would be a big challenge. I mean, I know the Madden guys. They have to go, I think, every week to Orlando and do voice stuff to update things.
Wow. See, that's the thing too when you just play the games. You wouldn't even think of all that work that goes into it behind the scenes and stuff. Crazy. Well, you got a good one. That'll be fun. That's I bet on Eastern Michigan just because of my knowledge of Buffalo. But anyways, let's get into the main event. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Fairway Meat and Grocery. Not just saying this. Taking the camper to Ames tomorrow, I unload it, and the first thing I do is go to the meat market, and I figure out which feast I'm going to make on Friday night. Looking forward to that. You never know. They always got different stuff at the meat market. You'd think it's just a meat market. No, they'll be like, we're featuring this today. So I'm getting after it tomorrow. I have my first stop when I get to Ames.
I was listening to Murph and Andy yesterday, and Fales was hosting. And I'm not kidding you. He talked about the Fairway Meat Market for 5 minutes. And he said,
it's amazing.
The Fairway Meat Market is one of the 5 best things about Iowa.
Wow. That's a big statement.
That's a promo.
There you go. Let's lead with Iowa State Baylor because I do think that's the game of the week here in the state of Iowa. I want to get into the game here, and we will. Massive game. Massive game. Maybe the biggest game of the season for Iowa State when we look back. Potentially. Maybe not. Just depends. I don't feel like it's got a ton of buzz around it.
Yeah, what's up?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Trice felt weird to me last week. Thanks for that, Eric. I'll pull my mic away a little bit. Apparently, I'm louder than you, Hassel.
Oh, I can turn mine up. I can turn my sucker up because now you sound low to me.
Oh, well, we're just on the fly.
I just turned mine up. How does that sound?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, turn yours back up.
Do I sound
You
good?
sound really low to me now.
I sound really low to you?
Now you sound good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I thought Jack Trice Stadium last week it was pretty full. Like, it wasn't like people didn't go to the game. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most boring games I've ever witnessed in my life, was the Iowa State-Ohio game, because and it's because of people like you, the TV timeouts. There were so many injuries. That game was almost 4 hours long for a blowout. Like that. I mean, it was really, really tough. Even for me, who I'm like a sicko. I love it when Iowa State gets up by a decent margin and I can watch the backups come in, right? We talked about this. I love that aspect of it, program building, all that. And it was hard for me. I got to a point last week in the press box where I had to get up and walk around just to keep my energy up. So I thought Trice seemed a little dead last week. This game is not sold out, which,
How is that possible?
Well, yeah, I think it's worth us talking through here because it's really interesting when you compare it to Iowa, because for the longest time Iowa State wasn't very good, and they're selling out, and they're doing all this great stuff. And then Iowa had these good teams, and they couldn't sell out, right? And now it's kind of the opposite, where Iowa sold out its home schedule this year, and Iowa State feels like now their cap is 61.5. And Iowa State has a record number of season ticket holders, right? So clearly there's interest. But it's weird. I put out a thing on Twitter and on Cyclone Fanatic because I wanted to kind of get the feel. And a lot of people tell me, listen, the inflation, we're priced out this year. They upped the ticket prices pretty considerably at Iowa State in the offseason. And that's what they're telling me, but it's just odd to me for this fan base that has turned out for bad teams for so long that a game like this is not sold out. It's really interesting to me. I don't have an answer for it. I don't.
Yeah, and for me, those Iowa teams that didn't sell out, in 2015 when they were undefeated and they weren't selling out, I think it had a lot to do with the schedule. Like, you didn't have good teams coming into Kinnick Stadium. You didn't have sexy programs coming in. For Iowa State this week, I mean, it's not Texas or Oklahoma, but it's the defending champs.
Yeah.
It's a ranked team. It's the team that was picked to win the Big 12 this season. And it's September. The weather's going to be great. Right?
It's going to be perfect.
It's going to be perfect weather for football.
75 and sunny, no chance of rain.
It's a good time for football. I don't get it. I mean, I think a lot of it goes back to expectations going into a season, I think. And because the expectations were down, some people have already made plans, and so there might be some seats that are empty. I don't know. Thank you, Jeff, for letting me know that my sound was too low. Apparently, I was too far away from the mic.
You're
I
good.
need to eat the mic.
Put your mouth all over it.
Like a piece of Fairway meat.
Yeah. Like a big pork rib. Just inhale that thing.
So how many tickets are still out there?
I think it's just like couple thousand. Like it's not. I saw a guy on Cyclone Fanatic post. Some of these even like huge SEC games that are two top 25 teams. There's 5,000 to 10,000 tickets still open there.
I promise you that's not the case in Tennessee this week.
No, not in Knoxville. Those people are nuts. We'll get to that game eventually. I don't know. I guess my thing too is just general buzz, and I don't know. Have we gotten conditioned to like you expect to be good and it's less of a big deal? But that's not really the case because you haven't been 4-0 since the year 2000.
And it's a huge game, big swing game too, because you win this and then everything is possible. And you already have one up on one of the favorites to win the conference. I don't know. I mean, there's no excuse really, unless you've got a wedding that you have to go to or something. I mean, it just seems like why not go to Jack? I mean, that's the place to be. And Iowa's not home this week. And even if you did want to watch the Iowa game, it's at night. Yeah. You can do both.
I don't get it. We'll see. And we've still got 48 hours from when we're and I'll be able to give you I'll be up there again tomorrow at about mid-morning. So I'm guessing it'll pick up. It just feels weird to me. There hasn't seemed to be, not even like with the ticket sales, but I guess there's not as much buzz about this game as I had anticipated.
I'm right there with you. I thought, after beating Iowa, that things would, that switch would flip, and people would want to be jumping on board, and they would have a little bit more play nationally. Not a single vote in the AP poll. Nobody's talking about this game nationally. It's odd, but
maybe,
that might be a good thing.
Maybe this is the week that switch flips.
Win this game, and then I would guess that if Iowa State wins this game, they would be ranked.
I would think so too. I mean, especially if Iowa were to beat Rutgers, that would help. I think right now you look at that Iowa win, and it's just kind of a
right.
Like it doesn't really mean much. I mean, at this point, you've beaten realistically, you've beaten a really, really bad historically bad offense, and then Ohio and SEMO, right? So if you look at it from that standpoint, but this would be a big win. Baylor is really an identical type of program to Iowa State this year. I find Baylor interesting. They're kind of the team, Hassel, that we have hated for a really long time, us Iowa Staters. It goes back to Bryles. There was the incident where they wouldn't let Iowa State have like shade on the sidelines. There was the fight with the Matt Rule year where there was the fight in Ames. Yeah. It was a near brawl where David Montgomery, right? It was a classic.
There was also the year when they lost, what was it, like 77-0 or something?
Oh, God.
It was like the worst loss in Iowa State history.
Doing the post-game show on the Cyclone Radio Network that night was just absolute hell. That was the game, too. We always give him crap. Where I think Jeff Woody played like 2 snaps in that game, but they did like the whole post-game show just interviewing Jeff Woody because he's such a good talker. And Jeff's got like an answer for everything, so it was just perfect. We always give him crap about that stuff.
I just remember, when I was in Des Moines from 2007 to 12 covering this team each fall, just playing Baylor, having to go down to Waco. That was when they were the old stadium. I think RG3 was the quarterback, and it would just be just a beatdown.
So Aranda and Campbell remind me a lot of one another. It's hard for me to hate Dave Aranda. I think he's one of the like true good guys in college football. I really, really enjoy him. I'm really interested in the quarterback matchup here. Blake Shapen and Hunter Deckers, 2 young studs, in this league that I think that's the key for Iowa State is to get in that kid's head early. If you look at what BYU was able to do to him on the road, their passing game is it's really hit or miss. So they've got 3 running backs. I don't know if you've watched Baylor yet, Hassel, but they have a 3-man punch at running back. They've scored more rushing touchdowns than any team in college football this year. Really good on the offensive line. fascinating to me to see how Iowa State matches up as far as I don't think they'll stop the run, but slowing this Baylor rushing attack down. I'll put it that way. Because, again, Iowa State really hasn't been tested in that. Their defense has been fantastic through 3 games. I don't know how you can't be happy with how that has gone. But they're going to get a test unlike anything. In this Shapen kid, my point is if you can slow down that running game and if you can force this kid to drop back and then you can kind of unleash your dogs, right? I think Iowa State could create some turnovers with its defense. But really, power rating-wise, these two teams are identical across the board. If you look at, I've looked at like 5 sets of power ratings now. I think there was a 1-point discrepancy on one of them. They are identical across the board. So this just screams to me a game where whoever makes the fewest dumb mistakes, Iowa State can't lose the damn game on special teams. That's the number one thing. You can't lose it on special teams. If you give up a kick return, that probably will be the difference in a game like this where your opponent, on paper is the exact same opponent as you. I think talent's pretty accurate here. 2 young quarterbacks. Both teams are good.
You said on Monday that they're kind of having, maybe a few struggles with their young quarterback, maybe compared to what's going on with Deckers at Iowa State in his first year as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, he's got experience, so he won the Big 12 championship game for them a year ago. But ever since he kind of became the man, they have struggled a little bit with his he's not turning the ball over a lot, but he's not accurate. I'm just basically going off the BYU game, too, because otherwise they played Albany and Texas State. So you can't really take a lot from that. But I just think on the road, I do think even if it's not a sellout, Trice should be pretty hot, right? To me, that's the biggest thing is to get in that kid's head early because that's where John Haycock gets really dangerous. If you can get to a quarterback early, he can really mix things up at that point.
What do you think of where they've got the students this season, and how has that been the first couple of games? Have they been able to impact things anymore from where they're at?
It's hard for me to tell up in the press box, but from people I've talked to, everybody hates it. It's harder.
I'll just tell you, just from watching it, it seems like it's lessened their impact on the game.
Yeah, and you know how it is in a press box. It's hard to tell.
The windows are shut.
Yeah, it's so sterile. But I've talked to some people who are on the sidelines, and it has impacted the atmosphere.
How so?
I was told by somebody on the sidelines it's hard to hear them.
So the
students, real quick, the students used to just give the opposing team hell constantly because of where they ran out and stuff, and they can't really do that anymore. And I actually think this was by design. I think from what I understand, this was kind of a Big 12 thing because there have been so many incidents with Iowa State students coming onto the field and while the other team is trying to get off.
During field storming situations.
Yes. So I think that's like where they initiated this move, and then they made it a financial plus as well. But yeah, I think based off of the feedback I have gotten, it has been a net negative thus far.
That's what I had gleaned just from watching the first couple of games. And it's tough to go wild for SEMO in Ohio, but I thought that the spot they were in was a perfect spot because that end zone is open, and so there's not a lot of noise coming from that side where they can be down there and they can impact things on that side of the field and kind of help close in that gap where the Jumbotron is. The other side is now closed. And also they were kind of out there on their own. Now they're more kind of in between other regular fans, right? I mean,
So the problem is in that other end zone where they're at now, it's the Souk-Up Club.
Right.
And oftentimes people aren't even in their seats there because they're inside watching the game, getting a beer. It's this luxury experience that they're paying a premium for, which I think that's – I get it, and I think that they should do it. Like the Souk-Up Club they bowled in the freaking end zone. We've been asking them to do that at Iowa State for 30 years. But
big upgrade, yeah.
I think with that, a game like last week against Ohio where you're up, the game was over in 10 minutes, right? Like, we knew the game was over. If you're those people and you can go in and get a beer and you can watch 5 games at a time, right? Like, it's that you're making more revenue. You're giving these amenities to your, donors, but at the same time, it does take away from the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to think that a game like this, if there's 8 minutes to go and it's tied in the fourth quarter, that those people will be out there cheering. But we'll see. It hasn't been a great test thus far, but from what I've heard, I haven't heard many people say that they like where the students are at. Well, I'll put it that way. The game, though, listen, I don't remember the last time. There's a stat out there, and I don't have it. I apologize. It's where I need Bloom. I mean, Iowa State doesn't lose Big 12 games at home very often anymore. It's crazy. It's like years.
It's been a few years, right?
Yeah. They take care of business. To me, I think Deckers is in a better spot mentally right now than Shapen is. Key to this one is slowing down that Baylor running game. If Iowa State can do that, keep them in the 4 yards per carry even category, Iowa State wins a football game. I got 27-20 Iowa State. What do you think about this one?
Just a quick Google search here. I think maybe the last time they lost a home game was Oklahoma State coming in October of 2019.
Yeah, and they got dicked. That was a terrible call. Go ahead.
I think that was the last time.
True Iowa State fan right here. I got to blame the refs.
So what was your prediction again?
27-20. I like the Cyclones.
Okay. I like Iowa State as well. I think it'll be a tight game. I mean, I don't think they're running away from Baylor or anything like that, but I've got them winning by 7 as well. I think that the home field advantage is going to be the thing that puts it over the top. If this game was at Baylor, I would not pick Iowa State. I think that's how close, like you said, with the power ratings, they're so similar, and the difference is going to be where the game is played. And that's another reason why got to get those students going, got to get those seats filled, got to get can you take your beer and go sit in the seat in the Sukup end zone?
I'll say it. Just get some shooters at Fairway and put it in your socks and take them in there.
Are you still not allowed to take a beer to your seat there?
No, yeah. It's the only place you can buy alcohol in Ames is in the Sukup Club.
And you can't take it out of there to your seat?
You can if you're in the Sukup Club.
Only if you're in that club.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Iowa State has a long history of great tailgating, and I know that they have ways of getting things into the stadium. But I think home field is going to be the difference here, and I'm going to jump right on that with you. 24-17 Iowa State.
Do you believe it all? I think I go too far with this. But Baylor is a team, again, like them and Iowa State are very similar programs, from the defense that they run to the type of offense that they developmental, all that stuff. Head coaches are very similar. Baylor won a ton of close games a year ago. Iowa State lost a ton of close games.
You loved going back to this.
It's got to even out.
The worm always turns, as my dad would say.
It has to. Yeah, there you go. Don Hassel. It has to. And I think this is where it kind of starts to, in regards to this rivalry. Like, Iowa State has been right there in these losses to Baylor, and it's just bad breaks, right? Like, and Baylor's been good. It's not like they've been this crappy team. They won the Big 12 for crying out loud last year. I just think it turns this week.
Kind of sounds identical to the Iowa State rivalry.
Yeah.
So close, so many years, just dumb little mistakes, losing games, and this year it didn't happen, and Iowa State got over the hump. I mean, that's what I see happening as well. I think this is the start has been perfect, and I think the perfect start continues. And then what does that take us into Jirel Brocktober? Is this the last game of September?
Yeah, it is. Jirel Brocktober starts next week. You're right. Iowa Rutgers. You sent me the total hit 34 last night. Is that correct? The
total is down. I just checked on an offshore that I can access, and it's still 34. But 90% of the bets are on the under. So this is going down. This keeps going down. It opened up in some places 34.5, and then it went up to 35. 35.5, and then now all the money's coming in on the under because this has a chance to be an all-timer. I think 34 right now is, in modern history, that's the lowest point total ever. And Iowa had that last season against Wisconsin. They tied it at 34. So if this goes to 33.5, I think it would definitely be the lowest point total in recorded college football history. And I think there's a good chance of that because both these coaches know they have great punters, and they're fine just trotting the punter out there on 4th and 1, 4th and 2. Because the punter is...
I didn't realize that Rutgers also had an elite punter.
And their punter is decidedly better than Tory Taylor. Like, he's better. He's. I heard a stat this week that he hasn't had a touchback in like a year. And you see Tory Taylor, I mean, he, for as good as he is, a few of those balls go into the end zone. I mean, once a game, that ball is going to go into the end zone. But Iowa punts from the opponent's 40-yard line so much. That's hard not to get a touchback. But it's sad. We're in a sad place, Chris.
I can't wait for this game. I think this game's going to be awesome. The
first thing we talk about are the punters. They had Tory Taylor out there for media availability this week in Iowa City. This isn't football.
We used to do that at Iowa State where, like, you're 1-8. Let's roll Kirby Vanderkamp out there. I've been there. But you guys you're not that bad. That's what's just so weird about all this still.
Well, the offense is bad. The defense and the special teams are elite. And it kind of, when you put them all together, that gets you like an average team.
If you're Iowa, though, like, it makes sense. Like, you've got this generational punter. Like, get him out there. Like,
and he's Australian. He has he's good personality. But come on. We watch football and sports in general to be entertained. Not to watch the friggin' punter go out and try to pin a team inside the 5. Not 20 times a game.
I told you I bet this on Monday. Now, and we're still, and I actually did some background research on this, Hassel, because I'm a real journalist. And I am told, actually, I just texted Chad Leistikoff, I'm just being honest with you, Chad from the Des Moines Register, by the way, he thinks that this quarterback from Rutgers is a true game-time decision, like an actual one. He doesn't have a lead either way. Now, I was reading some Rutgers, the New Jersey newspaper that covers Rutgers. It's like the only outlet that does. And
the Piscataway Picayune.
This kid now he's a sixth-year quarterback. Vidal, do you know about him? He started his career at UCF. He transferred to Nebraska, and now he's at Rutgers. This is his 6th year in college football. And he was taking like practice snaps and stuff last week, which made me believe, just doing this long enough, that he would, like, Iowa State held like 3 guys out last week who could have played, but they knew they would kill Ohio, so they wanted to make sure that they were 100% for Baylor. So my gut told me that this kid would play. However, the point spread being where it is leads me to believe,
makes you think that he's not going to.
Correct, because the line is 34, the number is. 7.5 is a ton of points in this game.
It is.
And I played Rutgers on Sunday night when this came out, and I'm thinking about putting even more down on it because I think Iowa will probably win. I think that they're better on defense and special teams than Rutgers is. I don't know. Who knows? But why wouldn't you just play the points here if you were going to bet on the game, right? Like, even if you're an Iowa fan, like, I don't understand why. And watch, this will be Iowa's Maryland game, and they'll go out there and score a ton of points. But I don't know. Like, I just, 34 is such an insanely low number. You know it's going to be low possession. 7.5 is like 17 in a normal football game.
And you know how Kirk Ferentz thinks. I mean, he thinks a 1-point lead is a touchdown lead. Like, one point is 1 touchdown to him.
Is it too obvious? Am I being tricked here?
It could be, because I mean, like I was saying on Monday, I think Iowa has convinced themselves that they've fixed some things on offense, and I think they're going to try to throw it downfield a little bit more. I think they're going to have more confidence going into this game, and and you never know with a late game, pick six, the way this defense has been able to put points on the board. This could be Iowa's up by 7, and then they get a safety and cover, right? Late in the game.
That's true.
They're up by 7. They've got the ball at the 30-yard line of Rutgers. You know what? Let's go ahead and punt it. Let's pin them down at the 1-yard line, and let's get that safety to make it a 2-possession game. Forget the field goal. Safety will make it a 2-possession, and there's your cover. But no, I think that the smart play would be to play Rutgers and just hope that they don't lose by 2 possessions.
Do the same game parlay of Rutgers and the under. Feels like a good play to me.
Until Petrus goes out there and throws a couple long touchdown passes.
All right, so Reganey is in, according to the Iowa depth chart. Keegan Johnson is not on it now. What in the hell is going on with Keegan Johnson?
So bizarre. And it sounds like he's not going to play again after he just made his debut. I don't know.
He looked fine, and they held him out after the lightning delay. They said it was precautionary. But that has been a bizarre storyline to follow with Iowa, because I think that does make a difference. I will disagree with you in the sense that
I know you do.
When they played Iowa State, they didn't have a guy who could get behind Iowa State's corner.
So here's where I think you're right, that it makes a difference that Iowa has some more proven pass catchers out on the field, because I just don't think the coaching staff trusts Petrus and the other wide receivers enough to even try to throw them the football.
Well, and we saw Reganey bail out Petrus on Saturday.
Yeah.
Are those
on
other
a pass
guys
that should have been intercepted.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
How about you remember the first touchdown pass to was it Bruce that caught that in the end zone?
Yeah.
How about the drooling that people were doing over the great throw from Petrus? He almost overthrew him. He was wide open. You don't lead a guy that much when you're that wide open. Just toss it out there to him. That was a bad throw. And I saw a lot of people, it wasn't just Matt Millen, of people just drooling over that throw. I guess that just goes to show how bad it's been. That any pass that's completed down the field is great. But that was not a good throw. Come on.
What is your do we have a prediction for the Petrus stat line this week?
Yes. And we've got Brock today.
Brock.
Van Winky is gone.
Come on in and say hi, Brock. Welcome to the podcast.
How's it going?
Brock is he's the backup Van Winkle. He's going to be with us quite a bit going forward as well. Welcome to the program, Brock. Student at Iowa State, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. All right, Hassel's weekly Spencer Petrus stat line prediction.
Remember how close I was a couple of weeks ago on that line?
You almost nailed that.
Against Iowa State. That was basically his halftime line, and he should have been benched, and I would have been, I wouldn't have won anything, but I could have patted myself on the back. This week, I've got Spencer Petrus going 12 for 23, 109 yards, 0 touchdown passes, 1 interception, 1 fumble.
And you have Iowa winning?
And Iowa wins the game. So that's I think they'll get a rushing touchdown, might even get a defensive touchdown. I think I'm done predicting that he'll be benched, and I'm done predicting that he's going to throw a touchdown pass.
I've got Iowa.
Forget about the Nevada game. That was whatever, but
I had, here's how I walked through my mind in this. I had 12-9 is the final. But then is
that 4 field goals up against 3 field goals?
It's all field goals. But then I was like, that would mean that these offenses have to get into scoring position that many times. So I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
That can't happen. So I'm going to go 6-3.
The final score 6-3?
6-3.
Huh. God. If that happens, why are you excited for this game? Because you're not an Iowa fan, I guess.
Well, it's so different for one. Like it's
different than every other game, but it's not different for Iowa fans. We have to sit through this shit every week. It's the same damn thing. I'm tired of it.
Honestly, there's probably a part of me that loves watching guys like you just lose your minds. Like if I'm being just honest, like it's good. It's good storyline. We'll put it that way. It's good
And
storyline.
it's just
What are we
Chris,
gonna do
just-
if they go out there and score 50 points? Right? I mean, it'd be fun to watch you eat all this crow.
Well,
I am interested in this game.
I've kind of hedged myself a little bit, even though I gave that Petrus stat line, which was terrible. I did say I do think that last game is going to help this team a little bit more than it should. I think most teams last game you kind of take it with a grain of salt, and it's Nevada. I think that they're going to have I think you're going to have a sense of confidence that they shouldn't have.
You need to be playing like Maryland this week. That's the problem. Because now you're going to go right back into the trap of a team that wants to play just like you do.
And Ferentz knows that this is going to be,
Yes.
Well,
that's the problem.
In Ferentz's mind, we just want to have the ball with a chance to win in the final 5 minutes. Now this is Rutgers.
Yeah. No, you guys, you need to play Nebraska. You need to play Maryland. Somebody like that who sucks on defense and is pretty. They think that at least that they're good on offense. So then you can lure them into your trap, and then Iowa's offense can kind of get some momentum that way. You're going up against a team that's going to do the exact same thing that you do, and is one of our listeners points out on YouTube that it's going to be lit in Piscataway. First night game in a long time. They're openly campaigning to sell this thing out. They want your ass.
They're going to be sadly disappointed when they attend this game and it's 6-3, like you said. Because I'm sure a lot of these fans that are coming to the game probably haven't watched Rutgers or Iowa this season. Because let's be honest. I mean, there's really not many college football fans in New Jersey.
No. But
they're coming out to this game because it's a party. It's just going to be a party at night.
That's fair.
But I'm with you. I think Iowa wins the game.
6-3. What's your pick? Give me a score pick.
16-6. Iowa.
Real quick.
That's an Iowa cover.
I hope not. I think I'm gonna pound. I think I'm gonna pound that parlay, the under in the Rutgers parlay. I'm already playing Rutgers at 7.5. I think I might double down here. I didn't know they had an elite punter. Honestly, I'm not making fun of you guys. That changes everything. If somebody can match Iowa and wash out Taylor, do you know?
And not just match, he's better. He's better than Torrey Taylor.
And another thing that people aren't talking about enough this year with Iowa, I hammered this on my radio show last year. One of the few times I'm right. Not having an elite returner like Charlie Jones is a really big deal when you play like Iowa does. We're talking about his stats at Purdue. That is a huge deal when you play that style of ball. And they have not found a guy to match that thus far.
Because you are getting 10 punt returns a game, and those yards add up, and that's where you can get a lot of those yards that you're not getting offensively, where you're all of a sudden on the edge of field goal range to start a drive, instead of having to go 60 or 70 yards down the field. That's a good point.
All right, two guys named Chris, Big 12 and Big 10 championship game predictions. For the most part, we've had a couple of league games, but for the most part, the conference seasons kick off this week. And I'll give you mine to start, and I'll start in the Big 10. I am going to go on the limb and go Minnesota, Ohio State. And so the question is, and we'll get to this I'm going to pull up Minnesota's schedule here real quick. Looking at the crossover, their tough game is they have to go to Penn State. I actually have Minnesota winning this weekend at Michigan State. I think Michigan State's a fraud. I think that a lot of people are going to start wondering here if they should have paid Mel Tucker that money that they did a year ago.
I think the answer is pretty obvious that they shouldn't have, but I don't know that necessarily means they'll lose this week. I think it helps Michigan State. That I'm of the believer that if you get your ass kicked one week, chances are you're going to bounce back and play a little bit better the next week.
Fair.
So I think it's a pretty evenly matched game.
It is. And again, the power ratings on that one tell you that they're identical. and that it's just going home field for Michigan State if you look at that one. They got some. Here's Minnesota's schedule. Minnesota at Michigan State. They host Purdue at Illinois. They got to go at Penn State, so that's their really tough crossover game. But then they get Rutgers at home, at Nebraska, Minnesota at home. They get Iowa at home.
What do you mean Minnesota at home? You just said Minnesota at home. You're going through Minnesota's schedule, aren't you?
Minnesota gets Northwestern at home. They
Okay.
get Iowa at home.
All right.
And then they have to go to Wisconsin. I like their schedule a lot. I have them winning at East Lansing this week. That'll really be the kicker here. Because
Yeah.
I think that you're going to go with Wisconsin in the West.
I'm going with what I've seen, with what I know, and I know Wisconsin isn't as bad as they showed against Washington State, a loss at home. And I think Wisconsin's going to be able to out Iowa like they normally always do, and they always seem to have Minnesota's number. I can't buy in on Minnesota being a Big Ten title contender. I just can't until I see it. I've heard too many experts pick Minnesota year in and year out, going all the way back to 2014 or 15. And a lot of times they'll get off to a good start, and then they fall apart down the stretch. I'm not buying in on that yet. So I'm going Wisconsin.
If there's going to be an outlier, doesn't it feel like this season could be it in the West?
Could be, but there have been several outliers. I mean, Northwestern has won the division 2 of the last 4 years,
which is crazy. Yeah,
and they've got a leg up on everybody, aren't they? They're 1-0 in the Big Ten because they already have a win over Nebraska in the opener. They won that game and then they lost their next 2. They're 1-2 overall, but they're 1-0 in Big Ten play. I wanted to pick Purdue. I really did.
I did too.
I think the offense is good enough, but just some horrible late half and late game breakdowns defensively against Penn State and Syracuse. They should be 3-0, and they should be ranked right now, and I would have picked Purdue to win this division, but
God,
not with the breakdowns they've had.
They have a great schedule, though. Their crossovers...
But they're already 0-1.
Yeah, they're at Maryland for a crossover. Indiana's a crossover, and they suck. Yeah. Anyways, and then they have the loss to Penn State, which would be their other crossover.
That's what hurts you. And I there's no way I can pick Iowa. And Northwestern's terrible. I mean, even though they're 1-0 in conference, they're not going to do any damage. And then where do you just can't be Nebraska? I mean, I think it's going to come down to Wisconsin and probably Purdue. I think those are the best 2 teams. I don't buy Minnesota yet.
What do you have for your Big 12 championship game here on September
Did we pick the other
20th?
side? I've got Ohio State on the other
yeah,
side. Yeah. I mean, that's just a given.
Shows how competitive that is.
Yeah, I've got Wisconsin against Ohio State in my Big Ten championship game, and you have Minnesota against Ohio State in your Big Ten championship game. For the Big 12,
this is tough this year, man.
This
is really tough.
Because I think there are maybe 6 contenders, including Iowa State. Oklahoma didn't win it last season, did not get to the Big 12 championship game last season. I think from everything I've heard from our experts, Oklahoma is as complete as they've been in a long time because of Brent Venables and because of what he's already done defensively. And that's going to give them that added punch where you can actually stop some teams. That was a problem they've had. They've just outscored everybody. They can stop teams now. And so I'm still going Oklahoma, and I'm not going Texas. I'm not going Baylor. I'm not going Oklahoma State. I'm going Kansas. No, just kidding. I'm going Iowa State to be in the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma. This is the year. Now, I'm not saying they'll win that game, and I know they've been there before, but this is the year that Iowa State, I think, gets to 10 wins in the for a season for the first time.
10 wins.
Yeah.
If I had to guess right now, I would put them at 9-3. I think overall, I don't know if I would go 10-2.
And 9-3 might, 6-3 in conference play might get you into the Big 12 championship game this year.
I really think the league's going to beat itself up. I really do. I completely agree with you on Oklahoma. I was dead wrong about them at the beginning of the year. We're a show where we admit when we're wrong. And I'll tell you about it when we get to our 3 most interesting games. I have some analysis on Oklahoma I want to give. I'm going to go Oklahoma and Texas for mine, and that's very boring. I just think that you can't overlook what Texas did against Oklahoma. They impressed me last week against UTSA. I know that they were losing early, but the way that they bounced back with the backup quarterback, I do think Quinn Ewers is better than Hudson Card. Now, there's a lot of speculation on fall camp and how that job was handed out and all that stuff. But if you watched him against Alabama, he looked really, really good. And the thing about Texas is their line play. Their defensive line was giving Alabama the business more so than anything. And I just think that they have recruited well enough to get there. Again, I don't think they're going to be a playoff contender, anything like that. I think Texas goes 2 losses in the Big 12. They get Iowa State at home, which is huge. That was kind of my deciding factor. Iowa State has to go to Texas and to Oklahoma State, which is tough.
Mm-hmm. Get Baylor and Oklahoma at home, though.
Correct. But yeah, I'm just going to go Texas. Obviously it's not what I want, but they've shown me enough. They showed me enough last week. This is more about the UTSA game than it is the Bama game.
I'm with you there. They impressed me last week because that UTSA is a good team, a really good team. And Texas was kind of sleepy to start that game in the first half, as we thought they would be. But then in the second half, they showed that maybe this is a different Texas team that we've seen in years past.
All right. 3 guys named Chris, 3 games to watch for the weekend.
What? Who's the third guy named Chris?
Did I say 3?
Yes.
2 guys
what
named
the heck?
Chris.
What's going on with you today?
I'm just tired.
Did the Clarinda Academy discussion just throw you for a loop on Monday?
Here's what's going on here. Can I go on a rant for a minute?
Sure.
So, when we got back from that wedding, my wife got COVID. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So half the people at this wedding ended up with COVID. Probably more, to be honest. I don't know who else did. So then my daughter got it late last week, okay? The 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like sick for a day and then totally normal. The daycare doesn't let the kid come back for 10 days after they've had COVID.
Mm.
She's vaccinated and has no symptoms, and she has to be out for almost 2 full weeks. Are we not encouraging people to not test their kids?
So I was just going to say, why even tell them?
Yeah, because I guarantee that's how my kid got it, because she wasn't around my wife. We actually did the whole quarantine thing and everything.
Like when your kid gets a cold, do you go around telling everybody, oh, wait,
no,
be careful, she's got a cold? I mean,
dude, here's what's insane. So, if your kid has strep throat, which is immensely worse than most COVID cases, for a 3-year-old, all they have to do is be without a fever for 24 hours, and then they can go back. But if they get COVID, where she literally has a congested nose, and
this is encouraging people to keep it quiet and not say anything.
It's just totally ass backwards. But I'm sorry. There's my rant. So I'm a little bit dusty. Just bear with me, okay?
A little bit dusty, a little bit foggy.
What are your top 3 games in the Clarinda Academy thing? By the way, maybe the most feedback I've gotten from a segment ever, because
we had the loose meat discussion last week, and then the Clarinda Academy stuff. I still don't get it. I still don't understand this Clarinda Academy thing. I mean, you claim that it's not a prison, and then you say that it's basically a prison.
It's not a prison.
They have to wave at you driving by.
Prisoners don't have to wave at you driving by. The prisoners can do whatever they want to you.
So you're saying it's worse than a prison? It's more strict than a prison, is what you just said Clarinda Academy is.
Back in the day, so the old prison was right on the back 9 of the golf course.
What the hell kind of town is this? This is where you grew up?
Yeah, you'd be teeing off.
Your grandpa worked at an insane asylum.
Yeah.
You've got Clarinda Academy.
Mom worked at the prison.
Which was a child prison. Your mom worked at the prison.
Yeah.
You've got some kind of Fort Knox set up there.
So you're teeing off on the back 9. and the prisoners would be sitting there with their hands on the chain link fence watching you tee off. Here I am, I'm like 10. You know, they could be pedophiles. I have no idea why they're in there. And they're just sitting there watching you. Nonstop.
I've always said that Sioux City is the worst city in Iowa, but
don't even.
Clarinda sounds like. How close were you to Council Bluffs?
Hour.
Because I've heard some things. I've only driven through Council Bluffs, but man, we've got to do a whole episode on Clarinda.
Dan Winters.
I think there's a lot to pick out of you about that.
I have a lot of Clarinda people up here in the Des Moines. Stansberry's from there.
Well, yeah, because they're getting the hell out of that place.
Either you
work either you work at the insane asylum or the prison or the maximum security academy.
They shut the asylum down. It's no longer a thing. But it is.
Didn't you say they
shit?
So they shut the asylum down and they shut Clarinda Academy down?
Yeah, there's a bunch of code violations, a bunch of stuff. It was like national news. But go ahead. Your three top games of the weekend, please.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me pull them up here. All right. I don't know if there's a particular order that Brock wants me to go in here, but I'm going to go first. USC at Oregon State. Now, this is a game where USC is only given 5.5. It's a tricky spot. Oregon State's off to a good start this season. They have 2 good wins. They've beaten Boise. They've beaten Fresno. And everybody wants to crown USC already. You know, everybody's fallen in love with this Lincoln Riley-led team. Caleb Williams is the second favorite now to win the Heisman. He has shorter odds than last year's winner, Bryce Young. He's now only trailing C.J. Stroud. This is going to be a tough spot in Corvallis. They're going to be hopping. Also,
have you ever been to Corvallis?
I have not.
It's a
have
trip.
You?
Yeah, I called a basketball game there once.
And I mean, those Pac-12 like
it is
Wazoo in the Palouse, where Pullman, Washington, where Washington State plays. I've kind of heard the same about that.
We had to stay in Eugene, actually, and then we had to bus to Corvallis, and I was with the Iowa State basketball team. Like, this isn't like your deal where you're traveling on your own and figuring it out. Like, no, we had to take a bus from Eugene to Corvallis. It was a good hour and a half drive, and you are driving through like a remote area of the country to get out there. And that's kind of the point on USC is like, that's a tough place to go.
And they've historically had some issues there with some good teams.
And you add to it the kind of Ames welcoming to Texas last year that Oregon State's probably going to give USC. So it'll be
That's
tough
a good. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Iron Skillet. TCU at SMU.
Oh yeah.
It's a rivalry game, and you just had a coach switch sides. Sonny Dykes going from SMU to TCU. Did you see this year's version of that Riff Ram Bazoo thing that TCU does?
No, I haven't. No.
It was the most. I've never had more secondhand embarrassment watching this video than I did with this. It was so bad that TCU scrubbed it from the internet.
Oh, wow.
It's a video that they run on the Jumbotron like before every game or something. It's some kind of dumb cheer that they have from like 100 years ago. It was, oh God, it's so bad. I wish I wanted to play it on today's show because I tweeted it out a couple of weeks ago and it has been taken down.
It's just washed.
Yeah, the person that posted it took it down because TCU was getting so much crap for it. But the game sold out at SMU. They can't wait to welcome back the coach that switched sides, and evenly matched game.
This game
SMU's
too,
coming off a loss to Maryland.
Our friend Dave Zavolinsky is the one who tipped me off to this game like 10 years ago. Neither program was like great at the time, and he's the one who kind of like taught me about how big of a rivalry this is. And then I was looking last night, like the cheapest ticket you can get in is like $175 right now.
Yeah. And it's sold out.
Yeah.
So you're not walking up and buying a ticket.
This was one of mine too, but I bumped it from my list just so we didn't go over it twice. All right, what's your last one?
Last one is I'm kind of cherry picking here. It's a top 25 matchup. Arkansas against A&M. This game is always entertaining. It always seems to be tight, especially when Burt Brett Bielema was at Arkansas. I mean, they were always in it as a big underdog against A&M. They played this game at Jerry World, and A&M has gotten the best of Arkansas for a long time now. Going back 10, 15 years historically, they've kind of taken it to their rival. This is like the Jerry Jones Bowl. And I think this has a chance to be a great game. I don't know which way it's going to go. If it's going to be high scoring or low scoring. With the way the Texas A&M's offense has been, it's been terrible. But Arkansas almost lost last week to Missouri State at home, and I think that's something that it's kind of woken them up. It was kind of their wake up call. And I think they're going to have a bounce back. They're getting points in this game as the much higher ranked team. I think they're 10th. Texas A&M is like 22nd or so. And there's not a lot of believers in Texas A&M right now. Despite that win against Miami, they just didn't look very good offensively. I think this is especially if Arkansas can win it and get another. They already beat Cincinnati this season. Get another win under their belt. It's a fun rivalry, a fun game, year in, year out.
Yeah, I'm with you. That'll be interesting. I like Max Johnson, that story, Brad Johnson's son. See how he can do in his second start for Texas A&M. I'm going to go. I think Kansas State at Oklahoma is really intriguing in the Big 12. Kansas State coming off of that loss to Tulane last week. Did they overlook Tulane, or is that like a sign of things to come with K-State? The intriguing part to me here is the history between these two teams. But I think the point you made on Oklahoma kind of erases that. If I had to play this game, I actually think I may lay the points, because in the past, Kansas State was able to just terrorize the Oklahoma defense, and just average 5 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think they can do that to this version of Oklahoma football. And I think that the talent will win out. And if that's the case, it's just I give Oklahoma credit. I thought they were vastly overrated going into the year, and I think I was dead wrong. But I want to see, because I also think Kansas State it's gonna tell us a lot how they perform in this one. If they get blown out, they're not a Big 12 contender. If they go in there and play really tough, they could still be one of those teams that has 3 losses in the Big 12 at the end of the year, potentially. Mm-hmm. Clemson at Wake Forest is fascinating to me. Wake Forest is giving 7 at home. Clemson's they've got the name brand. We know that they've got a defense, but they're not a complete team that we've seen yet.
No, they're just overvalued on the name, and Wake, quite frankly, has been better this season than Clemson.
Now, the history of these two teams, Clemson has killed them because they've got – but you just wonder, going into Wake this year, I have a feeling that if it's bad early, Dabo may pull the plug on the quarterback early. There's a lot of national implications in this one. This may be Clemson's biggest test of the year, potentially.
Could be, yeah. Wake, I mean, they got the quarterback back after a kind of a scary situation. He's and they're putting up a lot of points, and they look good. I mean, you see the name Wake Forest, and you're like, they've been better than Clemson this season. I'm surprised that they are getting a touchdown at home.
This is similar to USC going to Corvallis. Like, when you get these small markets and these small programs and the big dogs come to town, it is a crazy atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And then I have a tie for my second one, because I wanted to include the Big 12 and the Big 10 here. Texas at Texas Tech. Again, like, you want to talk about a nasty atmosphere. Like, that is – you talk to any Iowa State player and you say, where's the worst place to play? They tell you Iowa and they tell you Texas Tech are the two that stand out amongst the worst. Texas Tech fans hate Texas. If Texas gets out of this one, I think they're a legit title contender, but they got to get out of this one. This is going to be tough. But I don't think Texas Tech's there yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't seen much good from Texas Tech yet this season, have we? They beat Houston at home, right? But then they went on the road and they lost.
They played NC State tough. I watched that whole game.
And NC State's a top 20, top 15 team, but
they played them tough.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed with how Texas Tech played in that game.
It was obvious that they weren't at the talent level of NC State. So can that atmosphere overcome the talent level that Texas has? We'll see. And I think just it'll tell us a lot in the Big Ten West Hassel, is Minnesota at Michigan State, right? That's interesting for Iowa fans watching this. I think Michigan State's way overvalued, and we don't really know about Minnesota yet. So it kind of feels like a statement type of game for PJ Fleck.
Could be for Minnesota, yeah. You get that win with that schedule you mentioned, which is favorable after this. But I don't know. I like Michigan State in that spot just because of the way they were treated when they went out west and just got their ass handed to them.
That game was not nearly as close as the scoreboard indicated to.
I just don't get how, and it kind of goes against my pick because I'm picking Michigan State. How do you have that team? How does anybody have that team ranked in the top 15 or the top 10?
I don't know.
I guess we'll find out a little bit more this week against Minnesota. I'm not riding the boat yet. I'm not rowing that boat yet with you in Minnesota and your Big Ten West pick.
All right, that's it. Brock, appreciate you. Brock,
do you have one more Clarinda Academy story you can share with Brock before we end the show?
Brock, do you have any questions about the academy down there in Clarinda?
I mean, not really. It seems like every once in a while a new story comes up.
Where are you from, Brock?
I'm from Slater, so like literally
nice.
15, 20 minutes from Ames.
Okay. We did an RVTV stop in Slater a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but my sophomore year in high school, I job shadowed with Ross Peterson at KXNO, and I sat in on one of your guys' episodes.
Really?
Now, did he have his shirt on for that episode, or was that one of those shirtless episodes?
No, he had his shirt on.
Man, we can get you a much more higher professional quality than Ross. I'm kidding. Ross would laugh at the iconic shirt of Ross at what was the really fancy golf course we were at, Glen Oaks, and Ross is sitting out there doing the show with Keith Murphy without his shirt on. Just classic. Thanks to Fairway, Brock. Appreciate your help today. Thanks to Fairway, as always, for sponsoring Two Guys Named Chris. We will be back on Monday morning with a recap of everything that went down.
We'll be back talking about Iowa State and Iowa conference victories.
Miller and Williams will be on the air tomorrow. My locks of the week are already up. Hassel, I'm 8-2-1 so far this year.
So against the spread, or do you go money line on some of those?
I go all against the spread.
So are you better than Biff Hammer at picking games?
That's up for debate, I guess. I don't know. I'm not going to say that I'm better than Biff.
I mean, 8-2-1?
It's a pretty good start, but that's also where you start to get cocky and think that you're smarter than you are, and then you screw it all up. So, but go check out the locks. Appreciate it. And for Chris Hassel, I'm Chris Williams. Thanks for watching. If you watched on the stream, thanks for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you find your podcasts.